I know what you're thinking. I'm never going to be a transhuman. They'll never stick one of those crazy microchips in my brain. They don't need to. They're coming for your kids. Stay tuned and I'll tell you more. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Deep State, folks. I'm your host, Alex Newman. Thank you for joining us again. And if you've been with us for this series, you're probably already saying to yourself, that is the craziest garbage I've ever seen. There's no way that they can ever expect me to participate in this madness. And, I mentioned they're trying to paint us into a corner. They're trying to box us into being forced to participate. But they have a much more powerful weapon at their disposal. Okay, we would be naive to think that they didn't know that we're bitter clingers. Here is Obama talking about how we're bitterly clinging to our guns and our Bibles, our guns and our religion. Check this out.
People have been beaten down so long, and they feel so betrayed by government.
Well, it's not surprising then that they get bitter and they cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them, or a way to explain their frustrations.
They know we're bitter clingers. Okay, it's not news to them. They've known this for a long time. They know that Americans who have a brain and weren't successfully brainwashed in public schools and fake media, at least not to the degree necessary to make this possible, they know we're not going to participate in this madness. So they're going for your kids. Okay, they're using the education system and they're using the propaganda media and so-called entertainment to condition your children to think that this is going to be fun, cool, sexy, and that your silly, old-fashioned goober parents don't know any better. The first clip I'm going to show you, this is actually from BBC, the British government's dishonest propaganda service. And this is from a show. It's called Years and Years. And you'll see they're specifically targeting young people, right? This is what they do in school. They paint the parents as these old-fashioned ogres. They really don't know, the cool stuff that the cool kids are doing. So watch this clip here from this TV show and look at how they portray the old-fashioned parents who don't believe in transhumanism versus the young, hip, cool daughter. Check this out.
Do you see? These are interaction nodes. If I use this finger, I can open all the doors at work, no ID. And if I just scan this in the shop, I can pay for anything up to £1,000. And look, Dad, Mom, I've just taken your photo. Send and send. It doesn't need the sound effect. I just added that because it makes me laugh.
You promised me they wouldn't touch your eyes. Not after last time.
That was years ago. Grand's had stem cells in her eyes since then.
I can't help thinking... Don't laugh. All these power cuts.
So there you go, folks. That's the kind of stuff they want to install. Now listen to these old-fashioned loser parents who just don't realize how hip it is to be transhuman. Check this out.
What about your head?
Can't feel a thing. They inserted the tiniest wafer into my brain. And, oh my God, look at the result. Synced us up. No keyboard. I don't need a keyboard ever again.
You did that by thinking?
It can't read my mind. Not yet, but the wafer tracks activity in the neural pathway and micro movements in the retina to predict what I'm thinking.
But that is reading your mind.
Let's see where everyone is.
Yeah, so it's going to read your brain, okay? And it's silly old-fashioned mom and dad. They're just too uncool to understand how amazing transhumanism is. Now, watch how they describe this being upgraded, this having these chips implanted in your brain. Watch how this girl describes the feeling. It's better than drugs. It's better than just about anything you can imagine. It's just pure joy. Watch this.
You can run software like this on a keyboard. So why do you need the operation?
I'm trying to explain it in ways you can understand, but the connection is so much more. While we were talking, at exactly the same time, I wondered about the 80 days of rain, where it came from, why it was, what comes next. And I keyed into satellites just 30 seconds ago, so I can see the course of El Nino, and I can tap into pressure sensors along the Atlantic coast and barometric readings from the ships at sea. If I put all of that together, I'm there. I'm inside it, the tide, the depth of the sea, and the curl of the waves within me. And right now in Charles Street, Pasadena, a 15-year-old girl called Effany Cross has written her first song and put it online, and she's got the sweetest voice. So when I combine all of that, it's joy. In my head, it is absolute joy.
Yes, pure joy indeed. Okay, folks, they are not messing around. They are already using the entertainment system to peddle this crazy garbage. And they're going to be doing much more. In fact, I'll show you a clip in a future episode in this series about a TV show in Germany where they tell the kids, yeah, we're going to make God obsolete, right? We're going to have synthetic biology. It's going to be amazing. So I'll show you that. Stay tuned for a future episode in this series. They're also going for the educational system, okay? There's some really weird stuff going on in the educational system. Now, if you've watched the show regularly, you've heard me talk about the World Core curriculum. This was developed by the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Robert Mueller, a wackadoodle of the highest order, a man who called the United Nations the body of Christ, which is, of course, heresy if you believe the Bible. Now, he developed this World Core curriculum, and it says some very weird things, right? All the schools in the world should do this, and it should steer our children toward global citizenship. So that's what this World Core curriculum is about. And in the teacher's manual for this World Core curriculum, there was an explosive revelation that would probably go missed by most people who read it. So in the teacher's manual, in the foreword, he says, the underlying philosophy upon which it's based will be found in the teachings set forth in the books of Alice Bailey by the Tibetan teacher Jewel Kuhl. Now, most people don't know who Alice Bailey was, okay? She was a weirdo. She was an occultist. She actually designed the so-called prayer room in the basement of the United Nations. And she was also, fun fact, the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company. Yep, true story, folks. Lucifer Publishing. Now they call it the Lucius Trust because Lucifer Publishing was just slightly too obvious. Now, Alice Bailey claimed to be in communication with ascended masters, these spiritual entities who were giving her secret wisdom and secret revelations about what was to come and what needed to come. And so this Tibetan teacher, not Tibetan, not a teacher, not even a human being, he was actually an ascended master, a spiritual guru who was giving Alice Bailey secret revelations. So what did Alice Bailey and her demons say? Well, they actually wrote a whole book about education. It's called Education in the New Age. And one of the things that Alice Bailey revealed with her demons in this book, Education in the New Age, is that world citizenship should be the goal of the enlightened, with a world federation, also known as a world government, and a world brain. How did Alice Bailey know, and her demons, how did they know decades, generations before this transhuman era, that we were going to end up training our children for being part of a world brain? Okay, there was no Google back then. There was no transhumanism. There was no microchips to put in people's heads. There was no connecting us with computers. In fact, there were no computers. So how did she know we were going to have a world brain? I don't know. Maybe her demons told her, right? Her little ascended masters, Mr. Jewel Kuhl. She said the problem is to attain a synthesis of Marxism and neo-scholasticism. We're going to do that using the chosen methods of John Dewey. So that's Alice Bailey, how a world brain is going to emerge and how we're going to prepare our children for this. Now, you're thinking, well, what does this have anything to do with America, right? Well, Billy Gates of Hell, one of the lead pushers of this transhumanism madness, we'll come to him in a episode in the very near future when we start getting to synthetic biology and gene editing. But he was the head of Microsoft, and back in 2004, he went to UNESCO, the UN's Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and he signed an agreement with UNESCO. He agreed that we support the objectives of UNESCO as stipulated in the UNESCO's constitution. They said they were going to create a master curricula, global standards, global technology systems, global teacher training program so that all the teachers could brainwash the children all over the world with the same garbage. And then he came home. This was 2004. Then he came back to America and started pouring billions of dollars, yes, billions with a B, into something we call Common Core. Now, a big part of Common Core is the technology, right? They're gathering all this data. They're fusing children's classrooms environments with technology, and we'll get into that in a little bit more depth in a moment. But Common Core actually lines up with international standards too, folks. This is a global program, and you don't have to believe me. I'm going to show you a video right now of these goobers bragging about the fact that their little Common Core program is actually aligned with international standards. Check this out.
Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core state standards come in. The standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase.
So there you go, folks. There you have it. Okay, Common Core is lined up with international standards. That's not me saying it. Okay, your kids in Shanghai and Chicago and Paris and Seattle, they're all going to be learning the same garbage on the same techno systems. Well, China's actually pulling a little bit ahead on the transhumanism brainwashing front. And so I want to show you some clips. These are actually produced by the Wall Street Journal about some of the technology that's being pioneered in communist China by the mass murdering totalitarian dictatorship there. So check this out.
红色是表示你的专注力显示得很高。
Teachers at this primary school in China
蓝色是走神了，
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
白色就是你可能跟网络还没有连接好。
These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like.
做出选择吧 Good job.
Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes.
So there you go, folks. Okay, they're reading the brain waves of these poor children. They're sticking microchips on them. Check out this clip, too, a follow-up, also from the Wall Street Journal.
How AI tech is being used in the classroom. For this 5th grade class, the day begins with putting on a brain wave sensing gadget. Students then practice meditating.
现在想象我们眉心有一点柔和的光芒绽放。
The device is made in China and has 3 electrodes, 2 behind the ears and 1 on the forehead. These sensors pick up electrical signals sent by neurons in the brain. The neural data is then sent in real time to the teacher's computer. So while students are solving math problems, a teacher can quickly find out who's paying attention and who's not.
说明这段时间他是有点在那走神的。
A report is then generated that shows how well the class was paying attention.
Okay, so really, folks, this is where they're going with this, okay? This is really just a high-tech Skinner box. I don't know if you remember B.F. Skinner. He created the operant conditioning chamber, referred to as a Skinner box. And as my friend, we've interviewed her before here on this channel for the New American, Charlotte Iserbit. She was a senior advisor on education policy in the Reagan administration. She says what these computers are doing, they're just high-tech Skinner boxes, okay? The kid displays the right attitude. Yeah, homosexuality is wonderful. Open borders are great. We should have a world government. And then you get a little reward. You get a smiley face. You get a woohoo, smiley music, okay? And then you have the wrong attitude. I believe in border security. I think marriage is between a man and a woman. Little sad face, right? This is just a high-tech Skinner box, folks. There you just saw a picture of Skinner's daughter in a box, and he insisted it was not a Skinner box. Okay, but weird to put your daughter in a box. Okay, here's some of the technology that they're using in our schools in America today. Okay, I pulled these right out of federal documents. You see Emar, the robot, the totalitarians figured out that kids would be more likely to give information on their mental health to a robot than to a human. We also have a facial expression camera. I pulled this right out of a Department of Education report. It was already being used in federally funded educational programs. And what it does is it monitors the facial expressions of children as they're being exposed to different stimuli. So, maybe a drag queen walks into your classroom and says, hey guys, today we're going to learn about how you could be any gender you want. And the kid says, ooh, hey, mom and dad said there was only 2 genders. I don't know if I like this. Oh, this one had a bad reaction. We need some extra interventions, okay? They actually brag about the fact that they're using all this data that they're gathering through this technology to predict future behaviors of your children, okay? This is right out of reports from the U.S. Department of Education. All right, folks. Now, the COVID madness actually really helped this process along. Now, it was a double-edged sword for them, right? On the one hand, millions of families have fled from the government's brainwashing system. They're going to have to circle back and come get us later. But one of the things that happened was all the classrooms all over the world moved online. That allowed them to capture endless amounts of data on every single child in the world. We now have artificial intelligence and algorithms replacing teachers. Again, Communist China is leading the way. We've got crazy behavioral psychology techniques opening up new Pandora's boxes in education. And folks, all of this is designed to train your children for the techno-tyranny that they are preparing. In fact, in 2019, before we had a COVID, the UN actually adopted something called the Beijing Consensus on Artificial Intelligence and Education. They concluded in this international agreement that all governments must use artificial intelligence in what they call education to shape the values of your precious little children, so that when the time comes that everybody needs to get their microchips and their brain implants and their augmentation and all the rest of it, everybody will be ready to comply, and they'll think it's great while they're doing it. That's where they're going with this, folks. I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. It's a fact. This is the reality. And I know what you're thinking. I'm not going to participate. I will have nothing to do with this madness. If I have to go live in a shack in the woods, I'll do that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you and me both. I'm not going to do this. This is crazy. But they know that they are going to go for your children. That's their plan, folks. That's how they plan to do this. That's how every tyrant of the last 100 years went about his program. Okay, brainwashing the kids in the public schools, using fake entertainment, and that's what the totalitarians are doing now. So if you love your children, break your TV, smash it into 1,000,000 bits, turn that piece of garbage off, and pull them out of the regime's obedience training centers that are preparing them for the transhumanist world order. We will be back next week with another episode of Behind the Deep State. We've still got several more episodes in this series on transhumanism, so stay tuned. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. I'm your host, Alex Newman, and until next time, God bless you all.